to make more green beans.
Tip number 1 is to ensure you pick green beans every single day. Every annual plant, like a green bean, is trying to inherently produce seed for the next year so it can survive and grow another plant next year. So the thing is if you let the green beans get too big, then the plant thinks it succeeded and it's got good mature seed pods and it thinks it can stop producing green beans. So if you wait a few days, if you go on vacation and don't pick green beans for a good week, you won't have hardly as much harvest for the whole rest of the year. It's very important. You need to pick your green beans every single day. Tip number 2 is to be very careful when you're harvesting your green beans. You want to make sure you use a nice sharp set of clippers to harvest. This is very important because these flowers on green beans are very sensitive, and so when you're going in, if you try to pick a green bean on this cluster here or anywhere around it, if you just pull it off with your fingers or try to snip it with your fingers, if you jostle that around too much, that flower could very easily fall off, and then that's one less green bean you're going to have. You can see there where that little flower, you can see in there, it's turned into a green bean there, so that's okay. But before I started using clippers, I would just pull them off, and I noticed these little flowers would be falling everywhere, and they fell off as well from areas where I did not have a green bean yet, and then you lose production. Tip number 3 is for really all flowering plants, not just green beans. You want to make sure that you fertilize with something high in potassium and phosphorus and low in nitrogen. Too much nitrogen actually prevents flower growth, prevents flowers from coming out, and potassium and phosphorus encourage more flower growth. So I use Master Blend. I believe it is a 4-25-25. So 4 nitrogen and 25 of the other two, and that helps have more flower growth and less nitrogen, which again will hurt the flower growth. Tip number 4 is also for all plants, but really green beans is very important, and that is to do some type of a watering system to where you're watering the ground and not from the top up. So again, these flowers are very sensitive, and if you are not careful, you could knock those little flowers off and therefore lose potential green beans. So if you water from the top all the time, then what will happen is if your water hose, if it's too strong, it could knock those flowers off. So I have a soaker hose system here, which waters it consistently every day for, I believe this one's set to either 7 or 8 minutes, to water it every single day from the bottom. And it's the same way on both of my beds over here to ensure that it is watered properly from the bottom, it does not touch the flowers, and that also is consistent watering for any of your garden plants. Consistent watering is very important. If it dries out too much, the flowers will die, so you have to be very careful to make sure that you have good consistent watering and from the ground. Tip number 5 is companion planting. So this is something that a lot of gardeners will talk a lot about, and square foot gardening, which has become more popular, does this a lot. But green beans are one of those plants that really benefit from this. So at least here in Texas, green bean plants, when it gets to like June, July time period, they'll actually stop producing because it gets so hot, and you'll start seeing little spots all over your green beans. So I've got a little bit here. It's actually the middle of May, but it's already getting into the high 90s, and these spots are all from too much sun. They're all sunspots. Some of the new growth, when we had a few days off from high sun, are nice and green because we've not had high sun for a few days. But the later in the season it gets, the darker that'll become. Now, I have mitigated that as much as I can by companion planting. I've got my potatoes here, which partially shade them. Over here, I've got peppers, I've got carrots, and those partially shade them as well. Over here on this side, I've got my larger tomato plant there, which also partially shades. This is where they're not getting direct sun all day, so they actually have a little bit of reprieve. Okay, thank you all for watching, and please subscribe to my channel, otherwise your green beans won't grow. Have a good day.